In the picturesque town of Willow Creek, where the hustle and bustle of city life seemed like a distant memory, tranquility was the norm. Nestled between rolling hills and serene lakes, the town was known for its tight-knit community and idyllic surroundings. Yet, beneath this facade of peace lay the cracks of a reality that would soon be unveiled. The calm was shattered one crisp autumn morning when Robert Grayson, a prominent businessman who had recently returned to Willow Creek after years of working in the city, disappeared without a trace. Robert had been a significant figure in the town, his business ventures were a major source of employment, and his philanthropic efforts had earned him the respect of many. His sudden absence was not only a blow to his family but also to the entire community, leaving residents perplexed and worried. Detective Sarah Carter, a seasoned investigator with a reputation for solving the most complex cases, was summoned to Willow Creek to unravel the mystery of Robert's disappearance. Sarah had recently moved to a nearby city, but her reputation had preceded her. As she arrived in Willow Creek, the contrast between her high-stakes world and the quiet town was striking. She was met by the local police chief, Tom Mitchell, who briefed her on the situation. "Detective Carter, thank you for coming on such short notice," Chief Mitchell said, his tone a mix of relief and apprehension. "Robert Grayson's disappearance is causing quite a stir here. We've found no sign of struggle at his home, and his car is still parked in the driveway." Sarah nodded, absorbing the details. "I'll need to speak with his family and anyone who might have had contact with him recently. Any leads or witnesses so far?" Chief Mitchell shook his head. "None so far. His wife, Evelyn, and his business partner, Daniel Brooks, are both on edge. They're the closest people to him, so they might have some insight. We've already talked to them, but they're not making much sense." With that, Sarah headed to the Grayson residence. The house was a grand estate, with manicured lawns and an impressive facade that spoke of Robert's success. Evelyn Grayson greeted Sarah at the door. She appeared to be in her late 30s, with an air of elegance that seemed somewhat out of place in the otherwise casual setting of Willow Creek. "Detective Carter, I'm Evelyn," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I can't believe this is happening. Robert would never just leave like this." Sarah offered a reassuring smile. "I understand this is a difficult time, Mrs. Grayson. I need to ask you a few questions to help with the investigation." As Sarah conducted the interview, she learned that Robert and Evelyn had been married for over 15 years. Although they had been somewhat distant lately, there was no indication of any major issues. Evelyn mentioned that Robert had been working late nights on a new project, but she had no details about it. "We've been growing apart," Evelyn admitted, her eyes filled with sadness. "But I never thought he would just disappear." He was excited about this new venture. Sarah noted Evelyn's unease and decided to speak with Daniel Brooks next. Daniel was Robert's business partner and had been instrumental in running their joint enterprise. He was a tall, somewhat rugged man in his early 40s, with a demeanor that suggested he was used to handling high-pressure situations. When Sarah arrived at Daniel's office, he appeared visibly agitated. "Detective Carter, this is a nightmare," he said, pacing back and forth. "Robert and I had some disagreements recently, but nothing that would make him vanish." Sarah asked about their recent dealings and found that while Daniel and Robert had been working on some ambitious projects, there were no apparent conflicts that would lead to such a drastic action. Daniel, however, seemed nervous and avoided eye contact when discussing the specifics of their business transactions. "I don't know where he could be," Daniel continued, his frustration evident. "Robert was a driven man, but he wouldn't just disappear without a word." Sarah's intuition told her that there was more beneath the surface. The lack of physical evidence at Robert's home and the inconsistent statements from Evelyn and Daniel suggested that there were hidden layers to this case. Both individuals had their reasons to be anxious, but their responses left Sarah with more questions than answers. As she left the interviews, Sarah walked through the quiet streets of Willow Creek, reflecting on the clues she had gathered. The town's serenity seemed almost mocking in the face of the turmoil that had suddenly erupted. The close-knit community, once a source of support, now felt like a stage for hidden dramas and secrets waiting to be uncovered. Sarah knew that the key to solving the case lay in digging deeper into Robert's life, his relationships, and his business dealings. There was a palpable tension in the air, and she could sense that the true story behind Robert Grayson's disappearance was far from straightforward. As she prepared to delve into the investigation, Sarah was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how buried it might be. With the initial interviews completed, Sarah's next step was to piece together the fragments of Robert's life and find the missing links that would lead her to the truth. The quiet town of Willow Creek had become a labyrinth of mystery, and Sarah Carter was ready to navigate its complexities in her quest for answers. Detective Sarah Carter knew that to solve the mystery of Robert Grayson's disappearance, she had to dig deeper into his life and uncover any hidden connections that might reveal the truth. Her first step was to explore Robert's business dealings and the secrets he might have kept from his closest associates. Sarah began her investigation by examining Robert's business records. She was granted access to his office and began sifting through piles of documents, financial statements, and correspondence. It was immediately clear that Robert's business was more complex than she had anticipated. While outwardly successful, there were signs of financial strain and unexplained transactions that raised questions. One of the most intriguing discoveries was a series of encrypted emails and documents that Robert had been working on. The encryption was sophisticated, indicating that Robert had been careful about who had access to this information. Sarah requested the assistance of a cybersecurity expert to decrypt these files, hoping to uncover any pertinent information. As Sarah waited for the decryption process to be completed, she decided to revisit Evelyn and Daniel to delve deeper into their backgrounds and their possible motives. Evelyn was her first stop. Sarah asked Evelyn about Robert's recent activities and any unusual behavior she had noticed. Evelyn seemed to struggle with her emotions during the interview. Robert was obsessed with something lately, she admitted. He was always on the phone or working late into the night. He mentioned something about a deal of a lifetime, but he never told me the details. Sarah probed further, asking if Evelyn had noticed any particular individuals or activities that seemed out of place. Evelyn's responses were vague, but she mentioned a few names that Robert had been in contact with frequently. One of these names was the broker, a mysterious figure who seemed to be a key player in Robert's recent activities. After leaving Evelyn, Sarah visited Daniel's office again. This time, she approached the conversation with a different angle. She inquired about Daniel's financial situation and whether he had been under any unusual pressure recently. Daniel, initially defensive, eventually opened up about his recent struggles. "I've been having financial issues," Daniel confessed, his voice low. "Business hasn't been as profitable as we'd hoped, and I've been trying to keep it together. Robert was my lifeline, he was supposed to help me get back on track." Sarah's curiosity was piqued by Daniel's admission. She asked about his interactions with the broker and any details Daniel could provide. Daniel reluctantly revealed that the broker had been pressuring him for information about Robert's business dealings, but he had always been careful to avoid direct contact. "I was told to pass on information about Robert's projects," Daniel said. "I didn't know what it was for, but they made it clear that I had no choice. They knew things about me that I'd rather keep hidden." Daniel's revelation added a new layer to the investigation. It appeared that the broker was a significant figure in the case, and his influence extended beyond what Sarah had initially suspected. She needed to learn more about this elusive character to understand the full scope of Robert's disappearance. Meanwhile, the cybersecurity expert managed to decrypt the files, and Sarah reviewed the content with growing interest. The documents revealed a series of high-stakes transactions and hidden investments, some of which were linked to illegal activities. It became apparent that Robert had been involved in a web of deceit, with significant sums of money flowing through his accounts. One document in particular caught Sarah's attention, a contract detailing a deal with the broker, outlining a series of conditions and payments. The language was cryptic, but it suggested that Robert had been involved in a high-risk venture that might have put him in grave danger. Sarah returned to Evelyn and confronted her with the new information. Evelyn's reaction was a mix of shock and resignation. "I didn't know the full extent of what Robert was involved in," she said. "I knew he was keeping secrets, but I had no idea it was this serious." Evelyn's confession revealed that she had been suspicious of Robert's activities but had chosen to stay out of it, hoping that it would resolve on its own. However, her passive stance did not absolve her of suspicion. Sarah needed to explore further to determine whether Evelyn had been more involved than she admitted. The investigation took another turn when Sarah discovered a hidden safe in Robert's office. Inside, she found additional documents and a ledger that detailed transactions with various entities, including the broker. The ledger indicated that Robert had been involved in a series of payments and bribes, suggesting that he had been entangled in a larger criminal network. Sarah's next step was to identify the broker and understand his role in the conspiracy. She reached out to her contacts in law enforcement and organized a search for any known associates or aliases connected to the broker. The investigation revealed that the broker was a shadowy figure with connections to organized crime, known for manipulating and blackmailing individuals for financial gain. As Sarah delved deeper into the case, it became clear that Robert's disappearance was not a simple case of a man going missing. It was part of a larger, more sinister plot involving financial corruption, coercion, and possibly murder. The involvement of the broker suggested that Robert had been a pawn in a dangerous game, and finding him would require unraveling a complex network of deceit and criminal activity. The town of Willow Creek, once a symbol of peace and tranquility, had become a backdrop for a high-stakes investigation. Sarah knew that to uncover the truth, she needed to follow the trail of corruption and betrayal that had ensnared Robert Grayson. As she continued her search for answers, the stakes grew higher, and the mystery surrounding Robert's disappearance deepened. Detective Sarah Carter was now fully immersed in the investigation of Robert Grayson's disappearance. The complexities of the case were becoming increasingly apparent, with each new revelation pointing to a larger, more dangerous conspiracy. With the involvement of the broker and the web of deceit surrounding Robert's business dealings, Sarah knew she was dealing with something far beyond a simple missing person case. The first major breakthrough in the investigation came when Sarah received information about Daniel Brooks's financial activities. The forensic accounting team had traced large sums of money flowing into Daniel's accounts from an anonymous source. This was highly suspicious, given Daniel's earlier claims of financial instability. The substantial influx of funds suggested that Daniel might be involved in something illicit, possibly linked to Robert's disappearance. Sarah scheduled a meeting with Daniel to confront him about these new findings. When Daniel arrived at the police station, he looked visibly distressed. The mounting pressure and the weight of the evidence seemed to be taking its toll on him. "Daniel," Sarah began, "we've uncovered some significant financial transactions involving your accounts. Large sums of money have been coming in from an anonymous source. Can you explain this?" Daniel's face turned pale, and he fidgeted nervously. "I didn't want to get anyone involved," he confessed, his voice trembling. "I was coerced into accepting these payments. The broker threatened my family. They knew everything about me, my past. They made it clear that I had no choice." Sarah leaned in, her curiosity piqued. "What did they want from you? How were you involved in Robert's disappearance?" Daniel hesitated before speaking, his voice barely above a whisper. "The broker wanted information on Robert's business dealings. I had to pass along details about his projects and financial activities. I didn't know what they were planning, but I was too afraid to refuse." Sarah listened intently as Daniel recounted the threats he had received and his fear of the broker. It was becoming clear that Daniel was a pawn in a larger scheme, manipulated by forces beyond his control. Despite his involvement, it was evident that Daniel's actions were driven by desperation and fear. Next, Sarah turned her attention to Evelyn Grayson. She revisited Evelyn's home to further question her about the details of Robert's recent activities. Evelyn seemed to be in a state of heightened anxiety, her demeanor fraught with tension. Sarah noted that Evelyn was evasive when discussing Robert's work and their marital issues. "I've told you everything I know," Evelyn said, her voice shaky. "Robert was secretive, but I didn't think it was anything this dangerous. He was involved in something, but I never imagined it would lead to this." Sarah's suspicion grew as Evelyn's answers continued to be vague and inconsistent. There were gaps in her story, and her nervous behavior suggested that she might be hiding something significant. To get to the bottom of Evelyn's involvement, Sarah decided to explore Robert's personal connections and any interactions he might have had with individuals who could shed light on his activities. Sarah discovered that Robert had been in contact with a network of influential figures, some of whom had known connections to organized crime. These contacts included several shady businessmen and individuals with questionable backgrounds. Sarah worked tirelessly to track down these individuals and piece together the puzzle of Robert's connections. One significant lead came when Sarah interviewed a former employee of Robert's company who had left under mysterious circumstances. The employee, Alex Turner, was initially reluctant to speak but eventually revealed some startling information. Robert was involved in something big, Alex said, his voice trembling. He had been meeting with people who weren't exactly on the up and up. There were talks of money laundering and illegal deals. I didn't know the details, but I knew something was wrong. Alex's testimony added another layer to the investigation. It seemed that Robert had been involved in illicit activities, possibly involving money laundering and illegal transactions. The connections to organized crime and the broker suggested that Robert's disappearance was part of a much larger scheme. As Sarah continued her investigation, she received a tip-off from an anonymous source claiming to have information about the broker's whereabouts. The tip led Sarah to a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. The warehouse was known for its association with criminal activities, and Sarah approached the scene with caution. Inside the warehouse, Sarah and her team found a series of documents and files that detailed the broker's operations. The evidence revealed that the broker was indeed a major player in the criminal underworld, orchestrating a network of illegal activities and financial corruption. Among the documents were records of payments made to various individuals, including Daniel Brooks. The discovery was a breakthrough in the investigation. The evidence suggested that the broker was using his influence to manipulate and control those involved in Robert's business dealings. The connection between Daniel, Evelyn, and the broker was becoming clearer, and Sarah now had a better understanding of the forces at play. Sarah knew that to solve the case, she needed to confront Evelyn with the new evidence and get a clear confession. She arranged another meeting with Evelyn, presenting her with the documents found in the warehouse. Evelyn's reaction was one of shock and despair as she realized the extent of the investigation and the evidence against her. "I didn't know it would come to this," Evelyn admitted, tears streaming down her face. "I was involved in Robert's schemes, but I didn't think it would end like this. I was scared. The broker threatened me, and I felt trapped." Evelyn's confession provided crucial insights into the case. It became apparent that she had been complicit in Robert's illegal activities and had been manipulated by the broker. Her involvement in the conspiracy was now undeniable, and Sarah prepared to make her arrest. The investigation into Robert Grayson's disappearance was progressing rapidly. The connections between Evelyn, Daniel, and the broker were unraveling, and the web of deceit was becoming clearer. Sarah's relentless pursuit of the truth was bringing the pieces of the puzzle together, and she was one step closer to solving the mystery of Robert's disappearance. As Sarah continued to piece together the evidence, the case was shifting from a missing person investigation to a major criminal case involving organized crime and financial corruption. The quiet town of Willow Creek had become the epicenter of a complex and dangerous conspiracy, and Sarah Carter was determined to see the investigation through to its conclusion. With Evelyn Grayson's confession and the evidence against the broker mounting, Detective Sarah Carter focused on concluding the investigation into Robert Grayson's disappearance. The trail had led to significant discoveries, but Sarah knew that finding Robert and bringing those responsible to justice was the ultimate goal. Sarah's immediate priority was to locate Robert, who was now believed to be in hiding. The documents found in the warehouse provided critical leads. Among them were detailed maps and records indicating potential hideouts used by the broker and his associates. Sarah coordinated with local and federal law enforcement to execute a series of raids on these locations. The breakthrough came when a raid on a secluded cabin in the woods, identified from the records, led to a dramatic discovery. Inside the cabin, Robert Grayson was found alive, but in poor condition. He had been held captive by the broker's enforcers, who had intended to silence him once and for all. Robert was taken to a hospital for medical treatment and debriefed by Sarah. During the debriefing, Robert revealed the full extent of the broker's operations and how he had been coerced into cooperating with the criminal network. The broker had used threats and manipulation to control Robert and those around him. Robert's confession shed light on the scale of the conspiracy and the motivations behind his disappearance. With Robert's testimony and the evidence collected, Sarah was able to piece together the final elements of the case. The broker was apprehended in a subsequent operation, and his network was dismantled. The investigation revealed that the broker had been behind a series of illegal activities, including money laundering and financial fraud, which had ensnared Robert and others in his criminal enterprise. Evelyn Grayson and Daniel Brooks faced charges related to their involvement in the conspiracy. Evelyn's role in Robert's financial schemes and her cooperation with the broker were central to the prosecution's case. Daniel, although initially a victim of coercion, was also held accountable for his participation in the illegal activities. The case of Robert Grayson's disappearance concluded with a sense of justice being served. The quiet town of Willow Creek, once shaken by the mystery, began to heal from the turmoil caused by the criminal conspiracy. Sarah Carter's meticulous investigation had brought the truth to light and restored a measure of peace to the community. As Sarah reflected on the case, she realized the profound impact it had on everyone involved. The investigation had uncovered the dark underbelly of a seemingly idyllic town and revealed the lengths to which individuals would go for power and money. For Sarah, it was a reminder of the complexities of human nature and the relentless pursuit of justice. With Robert Grayson safe and the perpetrators brought to justice, Sarah prepared to move on to her next case, knowing that her work had made a difference. The investigation into Robert's disappearance was a testament to the power of perseverance and the importance of uncovering the truth, no matter how hidden it might be.